So I think we can probably start with a little bit of an introduction. So thank you everybody so much for being here. This is our third annual Front Range Industry and Postdoc Summit. It's a little different this year, as I'm sure everybody has been accustomed to with these changing times. But we really appreciate all of your attendance. And with that being said, all of our, because we're virtual, we thought we would cater a lot more to the young professional and postdoc kind of group that is kind of here present, and try to help everyone navigate this time a little bit better, and what we can all be doing to further our career and potentially networking as well, because I think there's a lot of people looking for jobs right now, and it's a little bit more challenging when you can't go out to a social event and meet people. And so I appreciate all of you guys being here, and also all of our industry professionals that are here as well. And then a huge thank you to all of my fellow FRIPS Planning Committee members who have been working so diligently and to make this a success. So with that, I will toss it off to Matt Simons, who is also an organizer, to talk through our schedule.
Thanks, Callie. Yeah, so today, so we set up the this virtual meeting over 2 days to try to break up some of that screen burnout. So today we'll have keynote speaker Adele Leah talking about networking and branding in the digital space. And then right after the keynote, we'll have a panel with insight from career coaches, recruiters, and some resume specialists. And then during that time, please enter questions you have to the panel in the chat. And that will close out our day today. And then tomorrow, really encourage you to come back for, we have another panel discussion from industry professionals, and then follow that up with the elevator pitches where postdocs will have a chance to tell a little bit about their research, practice networking, and then after the elevator pitches, we are going to shuffle around into some smaller networking breakout groups, and we'll shuffle those around, and you'll have a chance to have some discussions there. And we'll finish up with some closing remarks and then the awards for the elevator pitch winners. And so with that, I will hand it over to Christoph to introduce our keynote.
Thanks, Matt. So I see we have 70 people here. That's pretty exciting. Congrats to all you guys for attending. I think we put together a pretty good group of speakers and panelists, and I hope you guys find everything super interesting and useful. So first off, I just want to thank Adele. She's been just a pleasure to work with and for this event. She's a lively, energetic person, and I hope you'll see that even over Zoom. So Adele has had over 20 years of experience in coaching people through career transitions and career development. She has placed thousands of candidates in positions that harness their unique skill sets, passions, and ambitions. And even though she doesn't live in Colorado like probably most of us, she still does enjoy hiking in the Italian mountains, so kind of a like spirit in that way. So without further delay, please join me in virtually welcoming Adele.
Hi, everybody. I'm just working out the Zoom screen share. Bear with me 1 second. And here we are. So hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the great intro. And yeah, I'm not in Colorado. I'm actually in Italy. And I kind of split my time between the sea and the snow. So I'm currently in a place called Sardinia, which some of you may or may not know, and it's quite a little bit of hiking here, but then I head back to the mountains for the winter and enjoy the hiking and the snow. So, and it's, it's great to be here. It's such a pleasure to be able to talk to you all, and I really hope that you find my presentation useful and beneficial, and I'm sharing information about the world of work and really how to manage your career in this new virtual and digital age. And certainly things have changed massively as we all find ourselves in this pandemic, and the world of work has changed. So I'm going to touch on things, and hopefully give you all enough information to work with and help you develop your career. So just a little bit about me. I'm a career coach and mentor, and I work with people to help them land a job they love and really get the career that they deserve. I spent over 15 years working in recruitment, and I really saw that there was a big piece of the puzzle missing for people in their job search and their career development. Firstly, when I was working in recruitment, we were rejecting over 95% of the resumes that we were being sent. And of the people that I did meet, I just saw a lot of, frustration, unhappiness, unfulfillment, and, people not being satisfied with their careers. And they really didn't know how to land a job they loved. And what I saw was that we were really trying to sort of build our career and land a job and develop ourselves in the old world of work. But we were now living in a new world of work, even pre-COVID, and the new world of work has kind of been fast-tracked because of what's happened this year. So it really made me think, I want to help people with this missing piece of the puzzle. And so I decided to leave my corporate job in recruitment, and I retrained and set up as a career coach and mentor. And I'm now working with people all over the world to help them land the jobs that they want and get the career that they deserve. And the beauty of it is, which was part of my career plan, is I get to do it anywhere from the world with a phone and my laptop. And this really is, it leads me into how the world of work has changed, and really, how we must change our job search and our career development plans to line up with the new world of work. So as I said, even pre-COVID, the world of work had changed, but we've just seen this sort of massively fast-tracked in the last 12 months. Now, the figures were showing before COVID hit, so from sort of 2018, 2019, they were saying that around 40% of the workforce by 2020 are going to be remote and contract and freelance and flexible workers. Now, obviously, we're now seeing, gosh, it's got to be sort of 80, 90% of people are remote and working from home. But we're also, we're seeing that companies are really reassessing whether they want to employ a large number of full-time workers. More companies are moving to a contingent workforce model, which is, based on not having people full-time on full-time employment contracts, and really using freelancers, independent contractors and consultants on a sort of on-demand and when they have a, when there's a need basis. We've also seen that a number of companies are moving to this more remote, agile working model. Now, even companies that didn't want to do this, COVID has kind of, put them in this remote working experiment, whether they wanted it or not. And I can't see, in the near future, we're ever going to go back to these companies really having everybody in the office 9 to 5, 5 days a week. This remote working model, companies are seeing massive cost savings and lots of benefits. So, I think we should all be embracing perhaps the old way of working is we're not going to see it, see it go back to that, and really embrace this new way of working. And what this is allowing companies to do is actually really look more globally to recruit the talent. So whereas previously when we were looking at, okay, we need people in the office on a 9 to 5 basis, we were having to look at people in the local area. But now companies can look more remotely. And this, for you as a job seeker and looking at your career development, again, you don't have to look locally for companies. So, I think this is one of the really good things, and we can thank COVID for this, if nothing else this year. You know, and on this, I was working with a client recently, and he was based in Baltimore, and previously he really had to look in that sort of local area to recruit people, and he had 4 very key roles he was looking for, and he's actually managed to recruit 4 people across the US that he never would have been able to bring into the business previously. So, you know, it's really opening up a lot of opportunities, both as us as employees or as employers. And we're also seeing, you know, a really big change in, you know, sort of in careers in general. And I touch on this in a little bit more detail later on, but, you know, we sort of can't look at just having a career in one company, or, you know, look at those big organizations and think that we're going to be safe. You know, we've got the rise and fall of startups, we've got the decline of, you know, big, huge brands. So sort of having one job for life really isn't the way that we need to, you know, we can look at things anymore. You know, we're seeing a lot of people, they don't want to have one job for the next 20 years because there's so much more options and opportunities, I think, in the world of work today to really grow and develop our career and have total career transitions, which I've worked with a number of clients on. So just to kind of touch on, you know, really the old way that, you know, we look to get a job and develop our career, and we'd sort of think, okay, we put together a resume and we sort of, you know, outline some of our skills and experience. Then we go to the job boards, or as it used to be, and I'm not that old, but I've found jobs by newspapers pre the internet. But, you know, we'd look at the jobs being advertised, we'd send in an application and kind of wait to see if we got an interview, and, you know, keep our fingers crossed and really hope that we got a job. And this is what I was seeing so many people doing, and, you know, getting really, really frustrated that they weren't getting to where they wanted to get in their career. Really felt like they, you know, they didn't have any control over it, and they, you know, weren't feeling empowered in their career development. So let's jump to kind of the new, you know, 2020 way. And, you know, it really has changed. And I think as a job seeker, or, you know, you're looking at career development, really starts with getting clear on what we want and, you know, what we're really good at. And this is something that I think, you know, we need to do really on a sort of, you know, yearly, if not sort of every 2 years, really to sort of stop and take stock to keep, you know, creating and redefining our career plan so that we've got the, you know, we've got the direction in which we want to move forward to. Now, I say to a lot of people that I'm coaching, if we don't know what we're moving forward towards, we often spend our time moving away from what we don't want. So this sort of, you know, on a regular, you know, yearly basis to really stop and take stock is very important for long-term career development. When we get that, when we start sort of seeing the direction we want to go in, and sometimes, you know, what really helps us to create that direction is researching, you know, researching who's doing those roles that we think, I just had some flash up on my screen. Research the roles that we think that we want, research who's doing those jobs, and look at, you know, how is it possible? And this all feeds into sort of creating your career plan. And when we have this, when we have, you know, this is when I'm coaching people, this is what I call the sort of clarity piece. And I've written this, you know, a number of blog articles that I have on this that we, you know, if you're interested, you can dive into in more detail. But when you have this sort of, you know, clear picture and vision of what you're working towards, it then builds into how you develop your personal brand to align with this. Now, your personal brand does feed into your resume, but it's a little bit deeper than your resume because it's really looking at, you know, where you want to go, what you have to offer. And I'm going to talk in a bit more detail about your personal brand to really help you all sort of, you know, begin to develop that in more detail. Now, when we have our personal brand, we then want to build our network around our personal brand and around our career plan and our career goals. And to really future-proof your career and to really develop your career, it's about getting known by the right people and the right companies for the right reasons. And another key part of this new way of, you know, how to land a job, how to develop your career, is really tapping into the hidden job market. And this works hand in hand with the getting known by the right people and companies, and with your personal brand, and is very much around the networking. which I'll cover in more detail. Now, employee referrals continue to be employers' best source of hires. So this is when you can see that, you know, getting referred to companies is absolutely sort of, you know, crucial for your career development, and, you know, it feeds into really getting known for the right reasons by the right people. So let's have a look in a little bit more detail about, you know, what is a personal brand, and it's a fairly new concept, and it's certainly boomed over the last couple of years with the rise of social media and platforms like LinkedIn becoming the go-to place to find employees and attract new business. So 2019 was actually hailed the year of the personal brand, and really nothing has changed. In fact, it's probably you know, been sort of impacted more in 2020 with the world of work that we find ourselves in now. So your personal brand it's all about who you are and what you want to be known for. Now, before I dive really into personal branding, I just want to cover a few branding basics to kind of give it some context. So if we just look at some branding basics, if we think about a company, now I like to use Apple when I'm talking about this, which I'm sure is a brand that everybody knows. Now, how people sort of feel and talk about Apple and whether they recommend Apple's products or not comes down to much more than just their marketing and their advertising campaigns, although we have to say Apple's advertising campaigns are pretty slick. You know, and also Apple, it has an amazing sort of founding story. It's got, you know, a very iconic style. But again, they're ultimately not, you know, not why people, you know, purely use Apple. Really, Apple's succeeded in accomplishing what it has because people love the product and they love the level of service it provides. People love the quality of the MacBook and the iPhone. They love the features and the benefits, the problems they solve, the durability and their ease of use. And they also love that they're constantly being updated and improving and evolving for the demand that is needed. Now, people love Apple products because of what they do and how they make their lives more convenient and, you know, bring ease. Now, some people are very anti-Apple. I might have some anti-Apple people here, and, you know, often it's because there's kind of a clear-cut divide I find with Apple, and it's because they find another product easier to use, and that's fine. You know, everyone's got their opinion. But it is, you know, it's not just about what it looks like, although that obviously, you know, with Apple, they do have a really good look, but it's really about the service, the convenience, and their ease of use. So this is similar to your personal brand. And, you know, your personal brand, it's about how you promote yourself. It's about your skills and experience, you know, also bringing that personality. You know, Apple's got a personality, and it's got a story, and, you know, your personal brand, it's around sort of your personal story and how this reflects your behavior and your unspoken words and attitudes. So looking in a bit more detail, you know, your personal brand, it's really about how you market yourself and your career as a brand. It's how you promote yourself. And it's really looking at using your unique skills and experience and personality and how you want the world to see that. Now, when we're looking to develop our personal brand, we really want to think about what are our features and our benefits, and how does this bring about a value to a business? How does this solve a problem? And it's about the ongoing process and developing and maintaining a reputation. So again, when we look at Apple, you know, and as an example, Apple's got a really good reputation for its service. And when you're looking at your own personal brand, this is something that you want to, you know, you want to think about as well. So why is it important? well, I've touched on this in a little bit more. I touched on this before, and as the world of work is changing, it's really important to be standing out, to be seen as your brand and the problems you solve, how you bring your skills and experience to a business. Having a really strong personal brand, it builds trust, connections, and credibility. And we only get one chance to make a first impression. So little things, and I talk a bit more about, building your reputation. Actually, having a really good reputation, giving that really good first impression can be the difference of seeing you recommended or not recommended. And this is, having a really strong personal brand and building your reputation can really differentiate you from your competition, and it is a way to future-proof your career. Now, there's a lot more to having, to a personal brand than just having a nicely crafted appearance on social media, the number of followers, your headshot. It really goes a bit deeper than that. And it is around this service, this reputation, the problems you solve, and how easy it is to deal with you. So your personal brand is about what you have to offer people and what you stand for. And so really, to put it bluntly, it is very much about your reputation. And the power of your personal brand is great because it's uniquely yours and you're in charge of creating it and refining it. So let's sort of jump in, and I'm going to talk through some 5 steps of how you can create a powerful personal brand. So we're going to cover just a few. I'm not going to go into too much detail because obviously because of the time, and I don't want to sort of overload, but I'm just going to sort of talk an overview on the positioning, which is the key part of your personal brand, then how this relates to creating opportunities. The write-up, this is all about your marketing and how you engage to really build, and this is your sort of secret sauce to building your personal brand. And then around reputation. So the first step is around your positioning. And, as I spoke earlier on, in the new way of finding work, it's really defining, who you are, figuring out who you are, what you want, what skills do you have that you enjoy using and you want to use more of. And, how do you use those skills to solve problems and, deliver results, which is really about bringing value to a business. So again, when we're thinking of our personal brand, if we think of ourselves as a service provider, and if someone's sort of, engaging with a service provider, you're going to be solving a problem and bringing about a result. And this is the value that you bring. So ultimately, people are paying you to save or make them more money or time. And this is where we can really showcase our value. And, the positioning is really, determining what you want to be known for. So here is some sort of templates that you can use to create your positioning statement. And this positioning statement, this opens up the about section on your LinkedIn profile. It opens up the top of your resume, and it also creates the opening for your elevator pitch, because you're much more than a job title. And so when we can really define this positioning statement, and someone says, tell me about yourself, which is often the stock standard interview question, and also when we're, out at a networking event, this is having this kind of positioning statement is where you can be much more than just saying the job title you've got. So I hope these positioning statements, take a note, take a screenshot, because hopefully these will help you when you come to your developing your elevator pitch in the session tomorrow. So as you can see here, this is where you're showing people what you do for them, rather than just saying your job title. Then we look into step 2, and this is around opportunities. So if we think again about it from a marketing perspective, you know, we've now defined our features and our benefits and what we stand for, you know, what we offer, the problems that we solve and the value that we bring. We then want to look at, well, who are we bringing this to? What are the opportunities we want to open up to be able to use our skills in? So we look at, you know, who are you marketing to? What are their needs? What problems do they have that you'd be solving? Why do they need you and your skills to solve those problems? And then also looking at, you know, where you can find them. So this is all around, you know, really defining your audience and researching your desired industry and finding, you know, following the experts in that industry and following people in that industry that potentially will need and want your skills. Now, again, I sort of go back on this point, you know, really about the beauty of the world of work today is to think globally with this, not just locally. And this is something I've seen with my, you know, with my clients, is a real mindset shift, because, you know, up until sort of, you know, really recently, we've had to really look locally. But the world of work now, thanks to COVID, is much smaller than it's ever been. So, you know, again, really sort of open up your mind to all the opportunities that are out there. Then step 3, once we've got really clear, you know, we've got now the sort of 2 key foundations, we've got our features and benefits, and we've got the target market that we want to, you know, we want to approach. We then need to think about writing it up. And really think about this as writing a marketing brochure, in a sense, for your services. And again, you know, using those templates that are in step 1, this, you know, this is really key, and it forms your elevator pitch as well as what's going to be on your LinkedIn profile. Maybe if you've got a personal or a company website that you're setting up, and it's going to be your resume, as well as sort of other forms of marketing. And, you know, to really think broader than your job title, you know, it's thinking about the problems that you solve and the results that you bring to a business. So to do this, you know, you can look at, you know, showcase your skills, explain your experience, acknowledge your achievements. Now, what I've found is, you know, a lot of us don't really showcase our achievements in enough detail when we're writing this up. And if we think about it as a marketing brochure, we really need to tell the reader, you know, how well we've done before, because this kind of validates your value. And we also want to put a personal touch in when we write up our brochure and our marketing collateral. People buy people. And we tend to sort of, you know, often shift into a very work mindset and professional mindset and not show our personality. But it's so important these days. And I think even more so when we look at this remote working, you know, they want to kind of feel that they know, like, and trust you when they're reading your information. Then we move on to the step 4, which is all around engaging. So this is really taking your brand out to market. And this is your brand building secret weapon. And this is what a lot of people don't do, and they don't know enough of. So to really stand out in the job market is very much around this engaging and getting out there and networking. And, you know, as I said before, getting known by the right people and the right companies for the right reasons. So, you know, you've just done all this work on, you know, defining your features and benefits, defining your target market, and then really writing up all this information. You then need to get that in front of people. So it is about getting out there and connecting and communicating, perhaps creating content and sharing that. You know, around sort of building your personal brand, if people can see that you share knowledge and you add value, it really brings more people to want to kind of come and talk and communicate and connect with you. So it is very much about embracing networking, which I know for, you know, some people can be a little bit daunting, but with the powers of, you know, platforms like LinkedIn, and also because of the world of work we're living in, not attending the live networking events, which I have to say, put my hand up. I don't particularly like, but networking on LinkedIn, and if we really see platforms like LinkedIn as attending a networking event, it's so much easier because you can do it from your own home. You can find out information about people before you approach them. So we'll cover some of this in a bit more detail, but it really is about embracing networking to really grow your sort of, your network, your online presence. And I have to say, the more that we do the networking, the easier it gets. But often starting out, it can be a little bit daunting, but it does get easier. And then, when we're out networking, we've really got to kind of, manage our reputation and really look at how do we build a strong reputation. And, we need to think about this on and offline, and often it's just in some really little detail that can really, build your reputation. So things like having a professional voicemail set up, connecting with a personal message. So if you are looking to network on LinkedIn, do be sending a personal message to people, follow up on messages, and, look to add value, to offer advice, see where you can refer and recommend, joining conversations. So really getting out there and being seen as a value added, a value add to your network is going to bring in more people to your network and also build that strong reputation. So your personal brand, it really is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, this is something that always sticks with me. And so keeping this in mind, is a really good thing to make sure you're building a strong personal brand and a strong reputation. So now we've kind of got the five key steps to building a personal brand, and I hope that's all given you enough of a snapshot to get you started and to give you that information of how to build a personal brand. It's now, how do we use that to bring about results and to bring about results for your job search and your career development? So as I touched on, it's around networking, and I've said it a few times, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but I really can't stress enough. It's not just who you know, it's who knows you and what you're known for. So when we look at, networking, and now we've got this strong personal brand, we're going to get known for the right reasons. If we know about building our reputation, and we've got all this information, we're going to get known for the right reasons. We now want to make sure we're getting known by the right people. So going back to that career plan that you've defined, and your career goals, and thinking about the roles that you want to be doing, the companies you want to be working for, it's around sort of, finding these people and following them, reaching out and connecting with them, starting conversations, trying to get virtual coffee, catch-ups and calls to really start, building that brand, talking to the right people, and looking at where you can add value. And this can be really simple things. You've maybe, you see an article, you see a post that you think could be of interest to that person that you've connected with, or you've had a conversation. So maybe, just popping them a note to let them know about something you've seen, some research that you've done, a piece of research that you've read from somebody else. So really sort of, sharing that knowledge and content and contacts is a great way to just continue to build that network. And then if you start sort of doing that, you'll also find people start doing it for you, and that again helps build your network. With platforms like LinkedIn, it's really about trying to drive eyes to your profile. Now that you've got this personal brand and you've got a really good write-up telling people what you do, it's about sort of driving people to that, connecting with people. Now this helps you land a job, but it also helps future-proof your career. So I've had a number of people that through networking, and one client in particular over the last 6 years, she secured 3 jobs purely through her network and being recommended and referred. So there's a saying that your network is your net worth. And, in a sense, this is really true, because the recommendations, the referrals and the opportunities that can open up through networking, are huge. If we go back, we look at how employers like to hire through referrals. So again, networking feeds into really getting referred into, into potential opportunities. And this, feeds into the hidden job market, which is actually where 75 to 80% of the roles are hiding. Now, there's actually nothing really mysterious about this job market, and it's quite easy to find, and it is really about, opening up those opportunities through your network and through direct contacts and getting into, contacting people in the companies that you want to work for. Companies nowadays more and more want to hire directly than going to a recruiter or posting a job ad. Now, going through a recruiter costs an amount of money. For a company to put a job ad up themselves, not only is there a cost, but there's also a huge time involved. And nowadays there's up to, over 250 CVs as an average per application. So if companies can find people directly or through referrals, they're much more likely to use that approach. And not tapping into the hidden job market, you really could be missing out on, the ideal job opportunity. And really, this is done by, looking at your target list of companies that you want to work for, really working out why you want to work for them, following them on their social channels and checking their website and trade press for any industry news and information. Because when you have that, you can then contact people within the business. That's a conversation starter. You can also be, with the networking, be contacting people that would potentially be your boss or doing the job you want to do within these companies, really to kind of open up those opportunities. It's very much about, I call it press flesh, which is, really getting out there and getting in front of these people and talking to them and getting them to know you and, to know, like, and trust you. And, to do this, really leveraging LinkedIn is the key platform for, for this sort of method, as well as approaching, if you can't find the people on LinkedIn, finding their email address and approaching them directly is also something that you can do. Now, just to sort of, touch on this, these are some of the facts and figures around the job market today. And it's, it's massively changed from years ago, where we were just relying on seeing that job advertised, perhaps in a newspaper, or when, the online job boards sort of were created, and applying for them and waiting, getting out there and building that brand and networking, is where you need to be. And this is making up for 75 to 80, typo there, 80% of the roles that are being filled. And 93% of recruiters are using LinkedIn to research and recruit candidates. Now, using recruiters is a great method. I'm an ex-recruiter, so it is a great method, but I do advise people to only think of that as one tool in their job search toolkit. And again, really think of the advertised job market as one tool in the toolkit. And, the major tool in the toolkit is this brand building and networking piece. Now, last year, I think these figures were from 2019 or 2018, 122 million people received an interview through LinkedIn, and 35.5 million were hired by the person they connected with on the site. So you can really see from that the power of this. And hiring managers, so internal hiring managers and recruiters and managers that are going to hire their team, they're using LinkedIn to go and find their next hire. So I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. I really say, if you can't be found on LinkedIn, the chances of you getting tapped on the shoulder are 0 to none. One of the key things on LinkedIn, and that would be a kind of workshop for another day, because there's a huge amount to to talk about with LinkedIn. And I will be sharing, we'll be sharing in the LinkedIn group some free resources that I have around, building a standout LinkedIn profile and how to connect on LinkedIn. But really, making sure you have a presence on LinkedIn is going to be key. And also making sure the headline under your name actually says what you do and your about section is complete is absolutely key. They're the key search functions and which is sort of where the algorithm on LinkedIn is really weighted. So making sure that you have, you have a fully completed LinkedIn profile in the world of work today for your job search and career development is absolutely crucial. I see too many people on LinkedIn with their job title under their name saying seeking employment, and you're not going to be found with that as a job title, because hiring managers and recruiters don't go looking for seeking employment. They want to know what you do. But in the group, I'll share the free sort of fact sheets and information sheets I have on this, which will help you all some more to really build out your LinkedIn profile. So there we have it, the power of a powerful personal brand. A bit of a pit stop tour, because it is it's quite a huge topic, and there's lots more to sort of delve into. But like I said, some of the free worksheets that I'll share in the group will help you more. And by all means, connect with me on LinkedIn, have a look at my website. There's lots of information on there, my blog posts on there, share lots of information, and do feel free to send me an email with your questions or any help or advice you need. But I really hope, kind of in the time, I really hope that this has given you given you an overview around how to kind of manage your career development, your job search in this new world of work. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Adele. Those are some interesting little tidbits, like, especially about the hidden job market, and how many people find their jobs through that, through that route. You hear about it, but you don't really see many numbers like that. So I think at this point, what we're gonna do is move into the panel. So if you're a panelist, so Pascal is gonna go ahead and make you a co-host, so you can unmute yourselves and share video. And just a reminder to all of the people attending, so the format will be that only the panelists and the moderator will have video and audio. If you have a question, you can either post to everyone in the chat, or you can send to me directly if you would rather not share that publicly. So when we're ready, Pascal, let me know.
I think we're good to go.
Okay. All right. So I think if we started off with an introduction from each of our panelists, you'll have about 2 minutes, share your name, what you do, who you are, and kind of what your expertise and your area of interest is. So since I'll just go left to right in my screen, Matteo, can you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me well? Enough? Great. Well, hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm Matteo. I'm a postdoc at Weill Cornell Medicine here in New York City. And yeah, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. This is my second postdoc, actually, after my first one back in Europe. And I must say, I really love the journey so far, but I also realized how little opportunities academia has to offer, fortunately, other than the classic tenure track. So that's why I started to look into career transition a little bit into private, and I realized that this was such a big topic within the community, funnily enough, as in practice, nobody really prepares us for that, starting from PIs to peers and colleagues. So therefore, I decided to interview several HR professionals and also career coaches as well. And I tried to sum up everything, what I've learned so far in my new book. And that's called The Salmon Leap for PhDs, Swimming Upstream: A Career Transition from Academia to Industry, which is actually here. And I can add the link to the chat later. And with that, I'll just say I'm very happy to be attending the FRIPS meeting today. And thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah, we can go ahead and share some resources after the event, and a link to that book will be in there, but also check out the LinkedIn group. We can post it there as well. All right, so Bruce, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bruce Mance. I am an assistant dean in the graduate school at the University of Colorado Denver Enschitz Medical Campus. I'm also the director of the postdoctoral office and the career development office. I moved into this position about 5 years ago. First off, just as the director of the postdoc office and career development office. And my path includes a PhD in pharmacology, really focused on a tenure track career, realized that I wanted to be tenure track faculty at more of an undergraduate teaching institution, which led to my postdoc. Out of the postdoc, again, never really stopped to think about what it was that I really wanted to do for a career. Didn't really know what options were out there to begin. It was either you're a faculty member or you've failed. And so I made a transition over time into more administrative work because I started to gravitate towards the things that I found most rewarding without actually stopping to think about it. And so when I moved into this position, I brought those experiences to the kind of work that I do now to help PhD students and postdocs make those career transitions. And I know a lot of people are interested in industry being part of this panel today and part of the summit today. But again, the opportunities that are out there in medical writing and academic administration and research administration and science policy and government, there's so many things that are available to you. And so I really want to second everything that Adele said in that great presentation. I think a lot of those things really are what helps you determine where do you go from here. But so I'm excited to participate today to talk about those experiences programming that we have built and just discuss how do you move from where you are now to where you want to go in the future.
Awesome, Bruce, thanks. So next we'll move on to Susan.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Katz. Thank you so much for having me today. I am a talent attraction partner, kind of a fancy word for a sourcing or recruiting partner at Biogen. So we're a mid-size biotech pharmaceutical company in Boston. And we work in the area of neuroscience. So I support hiring across different departments in our research and development organization. I've been with Biogen about 2 years now and have a lot of experience talking with lots of different kinds of PhDs and postdoc students who are looking to make the transition to industry. So hopefully I can help provide some insights today and answer some questions.
Definitely. So thank you all for being here and volunteering your time. So I just want to remind people, Adele is also part of this panel. So if you have any questions directed to her regarding her talk, feel free to do that as well. So I guess I'll go ahead and kick off with the first question posted. So you talked a lot about the power of LinkedIn, really, and that's where I met Susan too, was on LinkedIn. So Adele and Susan and others, the question is, do you think LinkedIn Premium helps or is required? How much does that get you to actually pay for that?
You want me to jump in?
I would defer to Adele. I don't know that much about kind of the product side of LinkedIn.
I don't know the cost in US dollars off the top of my head, but I can tell you that you don't need premium. And so I'm not on premium, and I do all my work and get so much my clients coming through from LinkedIn. The method I kind of teach, again, you don't need premium. What you can find happens is when you're initially using it, if you've not been using it a lot, you have some limitations, and every month they're reset. But what I say to people is you maybe want to do the free upgrade. I just hope no one from LinkedIn's on here listening to me telling them not to pay, but you can do the free upgrade for a month just to get your search functions and your activity a bit more active. So then when you drop back down, you should still have have enough search functions. So basically you're capped depending on your previous month's activity. But I don't think you need to pay for it.
Yeah, so we did a quick search, and as an FYI, it's $30 US a month, which is not trivial. Right. Yeah, that's been kind of my take as well.
I actually agree with that as well. What I found out recently with LinkedIn, they try to offer career development courses online. That might be a little bit of of an interesting kind of turn, but other than that, yeah, I wouldn't use the premium version.
So the next question I guess we'll move to is a question about authenticity in your personal brand. How do you establish, what you're saying is authentic and not just keywords or things that you're trying to get people's attention with?
Do you want me to jump in?
Adele, why don't you give your professional perspective, and then, on branding, and I can talk a little bit about as a sourcing or recruiting partner, at an industry company, what I look for.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, what I say to people is, it's about adding that personality. It's about really defining your features and your benefits and make it tangible. So I say, show, don't just tell people what you do, because I think when when we're just telling people I'm results orientated, I'm this, that's when it's not authentic. It's kind of just, fluffy buzzwords that aren't really tangible. The person reading it doesn't get a sense of who you are. They can't, I kind of say they can't feel you. Whereas if we talk about our experience and what we've done, why we enjoy doing it, the natural skills and strengths we have, and how we bring that to the work that we do, that then becomes authentic. And that person, they can kind of read your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and feel like they know you. So that would be my take on it, if that sort of gives some answers.
Yeah, mine would be actually really similar to that. Give me as much information as I can possibly get from you without going overboard, of course. But, it is that show me, right? Like, show the groups you volunteer with, or, describe some of the outside of school or work things that you do. And when you're talking about professional skills, make it so that when I read your profile, I can see examples of those things. So that makes it much more authentic than just kind of popping some buzzwords or
absolutely
keywords in. Give examples of, like, show me how you're results oriented, show me how you like to go above and beyond. And it doesn't have to be long, just, one or so bullet points in your job descriptions or whatever it might be that kind of get me to say, like, oh yes, this person says they're this, and now I know they do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
If I can just add to that, I think that one of the things that I advise students and postdocs to think about, so one, what you're trying to do is present not just what you do, but how you do it. So those things matter, right? Because when it comes time to being qualified to do the job, anybody who is going to get interviewed is going to be qualified to do the job. But if you are not someone who can build strong collaborations or demonstrates good teamwork, if that's not something, if you're not a clear communicator or an ability to communicate to those broader audiences, those are things that all matter as well. And so some of the things that we recommend are using like the StrengthsFinder personality assessment, which is a really nice tool to get in touch with your unique talents, right? Things that you do well as who you are as an individual, and then work those things in, but be prepared to tell a story about how that shows up or what it's done. And if you do that, then those things really do become more authentic, because you're not saying it because the job is saying this is what we value. You're saying this is who I am, and I'm happy to talk with you more about how that's shown up in the things that I do.
I'm just going to second what Bruce said around the how. Here at Biogen, the what is one thing, right? Lots of people have those technical skills, like Bruce said, but how you work, how you operate, and how you, perform that work for us is, a much bigger piece of the pie than just the technical skills.
I think if I can sort of jump in again here, when I was working in recruitment, there would be lots of people that could do the job, but like you said, it's not just the skills, it's how you use those skills. So really displaying that. And one of the sort of, I think a good way when you're looking at writing your resume, your LinkedIn profile, is to use, there's the STAR method or the CAR method, and I use the CAR because it's kind of shorter. So looking at challenges that you've faced, and that might be, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be work challenge, maybe if you volunteered, challenges you've faced through your studies, you know, the actions you've taken to overcome those challenges and the results. And then also you can think about the learnings that you've had from that, because I think when we look at the learnings we've had from these challenges, this is where we can really see how we've built our skills. So again, it just becomes a really good way to articulate what we're bringing to the table above and beyond just kind of duties that we can do, and know much more about us and what we.
Great, thanks. So I'm gonna ask another question. So somebody asked about adding their immigration status or their visa type to their LinkedIn profile. So I'll make that a little bit more broad and include any other thing that might potentially limit you with an employer. Say you're geographically restricted, kind of falls under that category as well. And so I guess thoughts on including information like that on your profile.
Yeah, so I can definitely speak to this. So my general philosophy is that honesty is the best policy, right? I'm not going to recommend one way or another what you actually put on your resume. It is totally up to you. It is what you are comfortable with. I will not say one or the other. So Biogen does sponsor visas. Particularly for PhD level scientists. Of course, it's evaluated on a case by case and role by role basis. I think as a recruiter, it's helpful for me to know, I'm in a position where our company does sponsor, so that will not stop me from reaching out to a candidate or connecting with a candidate. If you have geographic limitations, definitely put that down. The worst thing that can happen is you kind of get into this whole process and you feel like, well, I don't want this to limit me. And then you've taken up your own time as well as the time of the company, and whatever, 2-3 weeks or whatnot into it, all of a sudden you're like, well, surprise. That doesn't feel great. But again, I want you to do what you're comfortable with in regards to sharing your immigration status. I don't mind sharing with this group. I have a disability. It's a visible disability. It's actually something that's kind of on my LinkedIn profile. It's kind of everywhere. So I understand, though, there are people who have disabilities that don't disclose that information because they're not comfortable, or feel like it could be something that would keep a potential employer away. So that is, something you have to decide for yourself. But as a recruiter and as a company, the more information we can get the earlier on in the process, the more we can do to help you as well.
I think with just touching on the immigration side of things, I think, actually using the networking and the brand building, rather than just the live job market, because some companies, obviously, your company sort of open and can sponsor. Some companies are just looking for people that, they don't need to sponsor and things. But actually, if you're really getting known, you're building those relationships, people then can start to think, actually, we want this person in the business, so let's look at the opportunity to sponsor. So it's perhaps not, not just about relying on the live job market when there's those, those sort of, things that are in consideration.
If I can just add to this too, I think that I agree with everything that's been said so far. And I think one of the recommendations that can come out of today is that you want to start the process of building your networks well before you start applying for positions, right? You want to start this early. You want to start people getting to recognize the value that you offer, the things that you bring to the table, all of that. And so if you're doing this early, having that information present about here is my visa status, that's not the kind of issue that is going to come up because you're not applying for positions at that point. And so if you get contacted by somebody who is looking for someone and they're willing to work with you on that, that's the kind of company you want to work for anyway, right? So you have it out there. And then if people, the biggest thing is if you can demonstrate your value, if you can show people how you will solve their problems and you will move their company forward, there's a lot more opportunity for them to work with you in that process. So I would say, again, if it's something that you're worried is going to be an issue down the road with that company, better figure that out before you even get into the trenches and start that process. So I would say, again, second, that it's very personal what you're comfortable with, but I think being transparent and honest will always be respected and appreciated by any potential employer.
Absolutely, 100%.
Awesome. So the next question has to do with administrative jobs in academia and how to prepare for that. I know personally I've seen a lot of job ads for the companies that I would be interested in working at, but they're more the administrative route. And as you know, a classically trained scientist, how do you transition into something like that?
Well, maybe I'll start with that one because I have an administrative job. I mean, I think the advice that I would give to anybody who's interested in that is figure out what you can know about it right now, right? Because if you see people who have those positions, but do some informational interviews, talk to people that are doing those jobs, start learning more about it, and then start testing it out a little bit. So get involved with your postdoc association, get involved with the FRIPS planning committee, get involved with those organizations that currently are doing more administrative work. There are a lot of different flavors. If you're involved in research administration versus academic administration, those can be very different processes. A lot of the stuff that I do is very teaching heavy and career development program building and things like that. And I like that flavor of administration. There are many pieces of administration I don't like, right? So start talking to people that are doing those jobs, because again, that's how you start laying the foundation and building those professional networks, and then test it out a little bit.
I totally agree with Bruce as well. Information interviews has been like so good to understand, what to do next. Also, what I can add to that is also I try to understand whether you want to do a bench-based or non-bench-based job. Of course, if you hate your real-time PCRs and your Western blots and you can't see a mouse anymore, it's maybe it's probably a good path.
I just want to second the informational interviews. And again, I think, this piece should be done, really early on in the process, so you can be building that career picture and that career plan and start, it's a way to kind of try things on for size, in a sense, talking to people that are doing all different jobs. And really you can start taking, sometimes pieces of bits of jobs and thinking that's what I want, but we don't have to wait to actually get in the role to find out if it's going to be for us. We can find out so much from talking to people, and again, then looking at like the strengths test that Bruce mentioned, seeing is that going to work with my kind of personality and working style. So there's so much we can be doing before actually getting out there and making sure that it's right and having that information to build into our career plan.
Okay, so here are a couple of questions that I think could be combined in a way. So the first one is, how do employers view a radical field change in your career? And then the other one that could possibly be related is, how do you focus your self-marketing if you're making a slight pivot? So that's related to what we just talked about, transitioning into something like an administrative role, but how about, more broadly speaking, especially, in circumstances where you're applying to industry, they typically say they want 5+ years, 2 to 3 years, 5+ years of industry experience. So how do you market yourself to prepare for that transition?
I can talk a little bit about this one. It's kind of like a few questions wrapped into one. So I'll start with the, career pivot. This is actually something I have a lot of personal experience with, not related to science or being a researcher, but I've taken multiple detours in my career. And I think it is actually just about what Adele said, that personal branding piece of like, show what consistent value you've brought in the other areas in which you've worked. Be open to potentially having to maybe take a step down in title or take a role that you feel like is either lateral or, I don't want you to undersell yourselves, but, in just recognizing that you're going to move into a new area where you have a lot more to learn than maybe where your education and experience are currently. So just be open-minded about those things. And I think having a clear statement on your resume as to why are you making this change? What is motivating you? What's inspiring you? And why do you, feel like the company you're applying to is the right place to do that? So career pivots can be tricky, but I think they require just a little bit more open-mindedness or willingness to flex on some things than, maybe kind of a straight shot type of role. I now forgot what the other question was. Krista, help me out.
Yeah,
oh, it was about the years of experience. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. So if there is a role that says we are looking for 5 years of industry experience, please trust that that's what the company is looking for. Yes, skills are transferable. We know people can be high performers. So there's kind of two sides to this. You don't want to constantly over apply or under apply to positions just to kind of throw your resume out there. However, if your company has the company you're applying to has a good talent acquisition group, they're using that system where your applications go to look for qualified candidates. So you may apply, for role A, and it's asking for 5 years of industry and you've got 3 years of postdoc. Well, I might be in my system looking for candidates that fit your profile for role B. And I may reach out to you and say, hey, I came across your information. Looks like you're interested in careers here. Can we chat about, what opportunities are available? So it's a little tricky. You don't want to go too high because then people can look at your application and go, this person didn't read the job description or, how they don't fit the requirements, but kind of just getting your information into the system, if it's not too much of a stretch can definitely be a benefit for you.
If I can just jump in, I think, again, this is where when we're looking at, career transitions, or we're looking, there's these roles that are being advertised and they're saying, X number of years experience. We're just looking at the live job market. And this is only 20 to 25% of what's available. And this is why, I can't stress enough that brand building, that networking, those companies that you want to work for, you might see, okay, they've got that role wanting 5 years experience. I haven't got it, but that's the company I want to work for. Start networking into that company and opening up some doors, not for that role, but for future roles, to get known. There might be opportunities that you don't know about. Often, and Susan, I don't know if you'll agree with me here, but often I've found the roles that they're not requiring a huge amount of experience, they're not advertising, because they get too many applications to deal with. So they are then looking at their network, they're looking at who's in the system. So it really is about being known by those people and those companies for those career pivots, or, if you're looking to apply for roles or other companies.
Yeah, we at Biogen, we post every single one of our positions. They all go on the website. So we don't, we don't have hidden roles in the sense that we're not posting things because we're worried about getting too many applicants. But a little, I guess, inside secret here, our hidden roles are such that I may be working with a team that's hiring a particular level, but they're open to a lower level or a higher level, or we know there's another role coming 2 or 3 months down the line. So we're interested in talking to more candidates, that are kind of on the sort of ends of the range of experience, or maybe a little bit below or a little bit above. So that's why I say it never hurts to kind of throw your information out there. Certainly the networking piece and getting connected through someone in the company is definitely a huge benefit. I will say, just make sure your referrals are sending you to the right positions, right? That you are qualified for. I do see a lot of employee referrals come through where the person they're referring isn't really qualified for the role. So, just pick out specific positions versus like, hey, can you just refer me to the company? But yeah, I think getting your information out there will likely not hurt you in the end.
So with that in mind, would you, if you see a job ad that says we want 5 years of industry experience, and you maybe have 2 or 3, or say you have 7 or 8, would you suggest applying just on the off chance that something else exists? Be like, hey, you're not a fit for this role, but here's this other one that's going to be coming up in a month or 2.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And be open to those conversations. If someone from the company or any company reaches out to you, whether it's through an application or on LinkedIn, and maybe you're in a position where you're just like, I'm not ready to leave my postdoc yet. I've got more time. I'm, not ready to, or I don't think I want to live in Boston. Like, say yes to the conversations. You never, ever know where it will lead. Even not just like immediately, but maybe 2 years down the line, like you decide, oh, I'd really be interested in going this route. I talked to that person, maybe I can check in with them. So be open to those conversations, kind of regardless of where you may be at in your personal timeline.
Makes sense. Okay, so the next question is, how early should we start the formal process of applying for jobs? And I think related to that is the question of, knowing when you're done with being a postdoc or a grad student. And I think especially now in the weird COVID era, some of these answers might be different than what we would have heard a year or 2 ago.
I can go for industry. If you will be ready to start a position, I'd say within 3 to 4 months, start applying at that point. You could take it out as far as 6 months maybe, but in industry things change. Sometimes roles are available and then they're not for a variety of reasons. So I'm not familiar with academic timelines, but industry-wise, I'd say 3 to 4 months before you're ready to like truly start a role.
With the networking piece, I just think we should all be networking all the time, because it's just, for so many reasons and for so many opportunities, even if you're not looking for a job now, as you said, someone you speak to now, perhaps in 2 years' time, they contact you and, or you want to contact them. So I just think, constantly to be developing that network can bring so many benefits around for the future.
So for the specific timeline piece, I think, sorry, Matteo. I think that, yeah, I would agree with Susan. In general, 3 months to 6 months is what I typically say that people should really start that process. As a postdoc, when you start that process, when you start formally applying, or, as a student, it can be a little bit more challenging because if you're trying to go directly from your dissertation to a career, you haven't finished that final thing yet. And so there can be some uncertainty with what you need to finish up. But as a postdoc, you want to give yourself enough time to, really apply, because when you're applying formally, you're going to put a lot of applications out, right? I mean, that's one of those things that you should set that expectation. But you want to start then thinking about, how do I wrap up things in the lab should something happen more quickly, right? So that you're ready for a responsible transition. If you did get that offer within the first month and everything moves forward, how can you start handing things off so that your advisor is in a position that they know what kind of experiments you're doing, they know where the data is, all of those kinds of things. So as soon as you start making that transition process, expecting that it could take, especially now, depending on the nature of what it is that you do, it may take 6 months to make that transition. But as soon as you start doing that, start preparing for that transition as if it could happen soon. And I have a colleague at the NIH who gives the advice that, this is pre-COVID, but you should plan on 1 month for every $10,000 you want to make. So as you think about what kind of position you're going after, it potentially could take some time. And so I think there's a lesson there, right? And so again, academic positions are tied to a much more strict timeline, that interviews are usually, positions are posted in the late fall, interviews start in the spring, that position would start in the following fall. But industry is going to be very different. So again, as soon as you start doing it, be prepared to make that transition.
Yeah, I can relate with that. I mean, I agree with the transition thing of being like responsible to it and try to understand also whether, you know, where you lie with your experience and publications, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, a little bit tricky with that, because I think to answer the question, when you're done with your postdoc, you're never done with your postdoc, right? So there's always some more experience. There's always like some reviews coming in on your publications and stuff. So I think it's really difficult to set like a specific timeline for that. What I can say for my experience is that, yeah, well, you know, when you realize that, you know, the academic path is not for you because probably you don't want to get your PI's job or go into tenure track, maybe, you know, you should just try to understand where your values lie and try to understand, start, you know, information interviews and other things. And yeah, basically just take a decision towards that. But yeah, it's a complicated topic because yeah, for the nature of work itself, as a researcher, it's like, yeah, you're never done, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know how that feels. So we had another question that is basically the same idea, but for grad students. So how would you approach knowing when you're finished with your graduate career versus postdoc and transition into industry from there?
Graduate meaning master's and PhD, either one, but like everything. I mean, same timeline, just like when you're getting ready to graduate, if you're not doing a postdoc, you know, I would say that 3 to 4-ish months, you know, and every company is a little bit different with, you know, fresh PhDs versus postdoc folks in regards to kind of what they're looking for. But I would say the timeline is the same.
So I'm going to make one comment and then I'm actually going to ask a question to Susan because I'm curious about this too. I think that, again, I don't want to stress anybody out thinking like, I'm almost done with my PhD and you're saying I should have started doing these informational interviews 2 years ago and now, you know, I'm behind the gun. So there's time to do this, but you don't want to delay. You really want to start establishing that strong professional network as soon as you can, doing informational interviews. Along those lines, I would say if you're finishing your master's or you're finishing your PhD and you have in mind the kind of job you want, you should be talking to people that are doing that right now and getting their advice on whether you need to do a postdoc, right? Like if you think that you're going to make this transition right away, but everybody you talk to says, you know, really in today's market, if you haven't done some postdoc experience, you're just not going to be as competitive for those positions. That's important information for you to have. And so that leads me into my question for Susan, which is, I wonder in today's market, because there's so many people who have done a PhD and then postdoctoral training before they're transitioning into industry positions, is there more of a tendency to look for people who have some postdoctoral experiences, whereas 10 years ago, somebody would have gone straight from their PhD into an industry position without doing the postdoc?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to generalize. So this is not a hard rule. This is not across the board. And this is specific to Biogen. I've not worked at other companies in the industry. We do tend to look for folks with 2+ years of postdoc experience. We hire fresh PhDs. It just depends, but I would say it's on the less common side. If you know you want to go to industry right away, you know, absolutely put those applications out there, talk to people. Those jobs are available, particularly if you have a specialized skill set that you know is hard to find. But the other thing I encourage you to do is look for postdocs in the industry. So we offer a postdoc program at Biogen. I think most of the large companies offer these postdoc opportunities. It gives you a chance to see what industry is all about. You might go in and be like, this is not what I thought. I don't want to be here. Or you might go in and say, this is exactly what I was looking for. I'm so glad I did this.
Okay. So the next question has to do with more traditional versus newer ways of reaching out to people. So there's LinkedIn messaging, but say, you know, who you're interested in doesn't have a LinkedIn, or email outlets still, you know, feasible, or are they looked down upon? How should you approach that?
Shall I jump in on this one? So if they haven't got a LinkedIn profile, then yeah, absolutely look to find their email address. I've found even with people that have got a LinkedIn profile, not everyone's using it all the time, so aren't checking the messages. So you might want to go to them directly, or again, you know, it's maybe you know somebody who can refer you. So also looking that way, talking to people that you do know in your network, letting them know, you know, what you're looking to do in your career, some of the people that you're wanting to talk to, which when you've kind of got your pitch clear is much easier to do, rather than just I'm sort of, you know, I'm looking for this or maybe that. You've kind of got that clarity, and just say, you know, do you know anyone in this industry sector? Have you got any contacts you can introduce me to? You know, is another way. But absolutely, you know, going directly. I think one of the key things and one of the information sheets that I'll share in the LinkedIn group is how you approach them. And it's, you don't want to kind of go in just saying you're looking for a job. You really want to build a relationship and build a conversation. And I say a little bit of flattery gets you everywhere. So you kind of want to ask them about it's true. You know, you want to ask them about their career and their journey. And people actually, if they have the time, they really like to help. And often people really like to talk about themselves. So kind of give them those opportunities to share their career journey. And, you know, most of us have been there where we've needed to sort of, you know, grow and build our career. So if they can offer that advice back to someone else, you know, I find people are open to, but it's how you approach them. And I think having that clarity, having your pitch, being professional and building that reputation. So if somebody does talk to you or they do reply to your email, it's those little details of thank you very much for your time. It sounds so simple, but it's so many people miss this. And I think that then, you know, stops them then getting referred on even more.
Yeah, I'm going to just piggyback off of what Adele said. The how you approach someone if this is the number one tip I can give you today. This is specific to recruiters. I know Adele's talking more about folks you want to network with and learn from and build those relationships. And you should be building relationships with, you know, corporate or company recruiters as well. Check the person's profile, right? My profile clearly says I support research and development. You know, please come to me with research and development positions. Have one or two specific roles in mind that you have applied for, and reach out as a follow-up. I get lots and lots and lots of LinkedIn messages that say, hi, I'd like to network. Do you have any jobs that fit my background? Let me know. It's tough because I do want to help people. I love helping people get jobs, and I like finding great people to come to Biogen. But, you know, I hate to say my inbox is so full and I can't get to everyone because I'm busy. I do my best. But if I get very direct messages that are clear in the intention and I can tell the person has done their research, you're like 99% higher chance of getting a response from me than a general, take a look at my background and let me know if you have jobs that are good for me. So that elevator pitch, I'm not going to be here for that part, but it is so, so, so important.
If I could just add one thing to that too, and I think that this ties in a lot with the keynote that Adele gave, especially for a research position. You're giving them evidence of your ability to be a researcher by whether you research them. What do you know about them? What do you know about the company? What are you prepared for? What questions are you asking? How prepared are you, right? Like, these are all those first signs of who you are. And if you come prepared to that, that's a good indication that you're going to come prepared to the position. So I think that, again, that how aspect really becomes so critical for that. And then again, this is really why I stress using informational interviews as a way to lay that foundation, because that's what you're doing, right? You are asking, hey, I think this is amazing what you're doing now. It's so cool. I'm actually considering doing that. Would you share with me how you got there? Be that, all of that. And then that's when they have an opportunity, because they will ask you, so tell me a little bit about yourself, right? So you being prepared to then pitch, well, here's what I'm interested in. Here's why I'm thinking about this career. Here's that stuff. So you really have great opportunities through that. And I think the question about LinkedIn versus email, you can find some people on Twitter. It depends. There are lots of ways you can identify where people are, but keeping in mind that everybody's busy. If you're sending an email, they're probably getting 9 million emails. So don't just send one, give them a chance to respond, but send a follow-up just asking whether they got it. You don't hear anything 2 times, then let it go. But give people those opportunities. And then the little things about being appreciative of their time, thanking them for that work, that really is critical. Very short story. I'm a super helpful person. I really try to accommodate and do everything that I can. And someone had asked to talk with me about jobs in the Denver area. I said, sure, happy to do that. And they emailed back with, great, why don't you give me a call on Tuesday at this number? And that was it. I was like, no, because of the way that they approached it, rather than trying to say, I recognize that I am giving them some of my time and they're going to work to make that easy for me. Those little things can be enough to turn people off. So I think that can't be stressed too strongly enough.
Yeah. I don't know if this will surprise you guys or not. As a recruiter, it surprises me on a daily basis as someone who's interviewed for a lot of jobs and sent more thank you notes than I care to think about. So few candidates send thank you notes these days. Just like a follow-up thank you email. It can be very simple to thank someone for their time, and it is your chance to get in that last zing of why you are, like, sell yourself. Say this is, reference something that happened in the conversation and say, I know I can, I'm confident I can deliver this, or I'd be a great addition to your company because of that. Thank you notes, and this is just me, but sending thank you notes after interviews is something that doesn't happen a lot. And if you do it, it will make you stand out. Can't guarantee it'll get you the job, but it will get you noticed.
Absolutely. I want to second that. And it is these really small details, but can just give you that edge over other people. And just to sort of jump in on what Bruce was saying, you do follow them up because people are busy. And then after a point in time, obviously you have to drop them because otherwise that becomes, pestering and also known as stalking. But a really good way to get people's attention without having to keep chasing them is get active on LinkedIn, get involved in conversations, be liking and commenting on posts. So your name can be coming up in people's feeds and someone's then going, I must get back to that person. I'd seen the message, I've not had a chance to reply. This person's active, they're passionate about what they're doing, they're involved in the industry. So again, it's just little simple things that can really start giving you the edge in the market and get you noticed. And, I said again, it's getting noticed by the right people for the right reasons and, building that reputation.
Thanks. So the next question is kind of, I think, the elephant in the room for a lot of academics. And Matteo, I think your insight on this could be really useful. So the question is, does the number of publications matter for an industry-related job?
That's a tough one. I mean, of course, also the recent interviews I've been invited on. Of course, my future employer will be looking at my publication, which is, of course, the only way we really have to kind of prove our expertise to some extent. Well, I think it really depends on the the job type itself and specifically. But yeah, I mean, I would like to hear some other people's points of view as well. But I would say, of course, they help.
Sometimes. Sometimes is the answer. I would say in general, from what I understand, so I'm not as well versed in the academic world, but from what I hear from my hiring managers that I work with, as certainly if you're coming out of a postdoc, it's an opportunity to show like how you've led a group to a successful conclusion, right? You've kind of carried through and led a collaborative effort. It's like results, right? Not just I did a bunch of experiments and I just spent time doing experiments, right? You have this publication to say, I delivered on my, what I was set out to do. And if, your experiments didn't work the way you thought, that's okay, it's science. But, some of it is the quality, some of it is the quantity, but really more the quality, I would say, is going to be looked at more so than just a straight number.
So what I would add to that is that I think it's the competence that is implied by the publication that becomes important. And I've been waiting to bring this comment up and figure out where it is, where it fits, because this is this thing that I see frequently with students in postdoc. So within academia, we talk about publications as being the currency of the realm, right? This is what defines our worth as your publications. And we get so focused on that as being our value. We get so focused on the specific discipline and technical skills that we have as being our value. But the reality of the situation is that's just how you've chosen to apply those skills. But problem solving, troubleshooting, communicating, designing a good, asking a good question that you can identify a good answer to, those are the skills that are really valuable. And you may have applied this to yeast genetics or neurotransmission or whatever it is, but that is not as important as the processes that you go through. And that's really what's exemplified in the publication, right? You had to come up with the idea, you had to ask the question, you had to design the experiment, you had to obtain some external funding to carry it out, you had to manage the project, you had to communicate the findings in a poster. All of those things happen before you get to the point of the publication. And so as a tangible result, yes, but try to unpack that and recognize all the things that you do that led to that as part of that. In academia, you'll get the message that if you don't have that strong publication record, you're not going to be eligible for those positions. That's because you're not going to get the grant funding, which are the two things that really set you up for those positions. But outside of academia, I don't think that it is viewed in that same lens. It's more about all the things that you can do that lead to those results that carry as much weight as the actual number of publications you would have.
Yeah, and I would say, all of my hiring managers that I work with in research and development, they were all in academia at some point, right? They all have PhDs. Most of them did postdocs. Some spent even longer periods of time in academia before coming to industry. So they do understand, right? Like they know what is involved in getting a publication out and all those extra skills that, Bruce talked about that, go into a successful publication. So they recognize that piece of it as well.
I'll jump in here and ask another related question that somebody posed. So, we've been kind of hitting on it with the last two answers. In academia, grad student, postdoc, you're very skills oriented, but you have many more skills, grant writing, communication, etc. So the question is, do you guys have any resources or tools, assessments, things like that you can recommend for people to help figure out what those are and how to articulate them?
Is the question to identify, how do you identify the additional skills that you have?
Yeah, I think that's the question. Like, how do you frame that thought process and then identify them and then do something with that knowledge?
So one of the things that's a great place to start is the AAAS My IDP. If you haven't used it before, at the beginning, there's a skills, interests, and values assessment. And so that kind of walks you through some of the types of skills, things that you do well. They ask you questions that are guided in that way. I think getting feedback from other people in your lab, getting feedback from your advisors about what are those things that you do well is a good start on that. I think it's oftentimes difficult to identify what are those things that you do well and what do you think you do well, and distinguishing those two. And so really getting a third party to be the person that says, here are the things that you do well for some of those skills. But again, then where have you had those successes, right? Like if you are winning awards for poster presentations or getting awards for invited talks, things like that, that's a sign that you're a good communicator in some ways. I think it takes more of a conversation to unpack some of those skills than what an assessment can reveal, outside of taking like a writing assessment or something like that, right? Which is standard oftentimes for a lot of medical writing companies or things. They'll give you a test for things that you can do. So that's kind of where I would start with some of those. I think it's hard to have an assessment to identify those things without it being a real objective measure.
Yeah, I would also say make those things bullet points on your resume, right? So like I support hiring across all of research and development. I probably haven't taken a science class since I was in high school. So, you know, I'm speaking a very different language than you guys are. So highlight your technical skills, but, you know, put some bullet points in about successfully led a project, you know, and delivered X result, right? Like put some of those other non-scientific skills into your bullet points so that a non-technical person who maybe is newer to recruiting scientists, you know, doesn't understand what goes into delivering a publication, right? That they'll be able to just spell it out, like put it right on there.
If I can jump on that, I really like the my IDB kind of tool that Bruce mentioned before. It's kind of nice. It lets you understand more or less where you are with your skills. But of course, if you want to build new skills, I mean, there's so much stuff out there. Thinking of, I don't know, you want to build some writing skills. For instance, Nature Publishing, they offer kind of free courses that you can attend. Or for instance, I don't know if you want to go into computational biology, but you have no idea about R or Python. Codecademy, for instance, has a lot of courses. Udemy, edX. I mean, that's, you name it. I mean, there's so much out there. So you just really need to understand, you know, again, whether which position you're really interested into, and then probably build your skills towards that. If that makes sense.
I find quite a simple exercise, but is really good, is actually just to start listing down, you know, your top 10 achievements. And then within that, you can start seeing the skills and the strengths you've used to you know, in getting that achievement. That can also then start sort of feeding in where you want to go, because you're going to want more of, you know, more of what you're good at, or where you want to, you know, want to grow your skills. So it's, you know, it's quite a basic process, but I find actually just, you know, stopping, sitting down, taking the time to break down, okay, these are my top 10 achievements. This is what I loved about it, why I loved it, the skills I was using, the skills I want to develop more of. So that can just bring, you know, bring an insight.
So I'll just make one final comment on this one, because I think as Adele was just suggesting that, which I think is a great way to start, it reminds me of one of those other activities that I recommend for folks, which is just journaling. So keeping a journal about what do you like in the lab and what don't you like in the lab. So when you talk about skills, skills you can build, skills you can develop. What's the activity behind that? Why do you like doing that thing? Is it about communicating science? Is it about executing the research? Is it the data analysis piece? What really invigorates you? Because when you identify why you want to do that thing, then you can identify what skills do you need in that area. What are you good at now? What could you improve on? And you can go out and acquire that. But take a step back and just think about, you know, here's when I had a great day in the lab. Here's the day that I hated in the lab. You know, what was going on? What did you get to do? Just so you can start getting in touch with the types of activities that you really enjoy. And then you can focus on building those skills later. You're all smart. That's demonstrated, that's proven. That's how you got to where it is, right? You have this capacity to learn. It's just about what do you need to learn.
Okay, so we had another question that has to do with basically the transient nature of being a postdoc. Sometimes you're only there for 1 to 2 years. So what do you do when you want to stay in your current location, but jobs are scarce? So any geographically restricted tips?
So I would say be flexible. I was somebody who was in that position. My wife is a pediatric emergency medicine physician. Her career is probably more important than where my career is. And so I was making decisions about where I wanted to do postdoc training. After that, where I applied for positions. I said in my intro that I had applied for some faculty positions, didn't get them, but I applied for positions in Denver and in Madison, Wisconsin. I didn't search for positions all over. I was trying to restrict it. And so it's hard to call your shot that way sometimes. But when you get in touch with those core components of what you like doing, you start to see that that can show up in a lot of different careers. right? So being a medical science liaison is one of those things that I think is interesting, because a lot of postdocs are interested in teaching, but they think about teaching as being, an instructor at a university kind of setting. But an MSL involves a lot of teaching, right? Because you're explaining the science to the people that are using the product. Consulting is another field that's similar, that has that component. When you can distill down what you like doing and use that as your guide rather than a specific job title, all of a sudden you may see that in that location, there are more opportunities than what you perceived. And the other thing is, I would say, don't discount the importance of that. If you're not happy outside of work, you're not going to be that happy at work. And so if you really want to live in one location, if you love Colorado, if you want to stay here, let that be part of the process of deciding what is it that you want to do. So I think, in terms of being geographically restricted, the more you can refine down the core aspects of the work that you do, the more opportunities you'll see exist. In my role in administration, I teach workshops, I write grants, I do a lot of the same things that faculty positions do, but it's not your traditional faculty kind of position, right? So again, the kinds of things that I like doing, I've managed to find in the position that I have right now, but you have to think outside the box a little bit about what does that look like.
Okay, so this is one that, we're all going to come up against if we haven't already. The question is, when should we tell our mentors that we're looking and applying for positions? And what if we tell our mentor and don't find anything in 6 months and they've replaced us?
I feel like I'm the one who's always going first, but so I would say when you are past the first interview process, like you have applied, so it's important that you're open and you're having conversations with them about your upcoming transition. I don't think that it helps to say, hey, I'm thinking of applying for jobs in the next 6 months, especially depending on how some of those relationships can be. Not all mentors are really supportive of postdocs transitioning outside of academia or leaving, right? You want to do things in a responsible, professional way. You don't ever want to pull the rug out from underneath somebody. But I think that there's also a time that when you start to see there's real potential with a position, that's the time to have more of those formal conversations. I don't think you need to tell them at the very start of that process, but you also don't want to put in 2 weeks notice. That's not really the kind of thing that's going to help you in the future. So I'd say it's trying to find some of that balance, but I will shut up for a bit.
It's really specific to the situation, of course, and to your specific mentor. I mean, some mentors are really open to that. Everybody knows that we can all stay in academia, right? So, yeah, you can be open about it. Sometimes with some people, some mentors, some other PIs that really have no idea, or really, probably don't really want to talk about it, or they're not really open to it. So for those ones, it's a little bit of a more complex situation, to be honest. So yeah, there's not really like one size fits all here.
I can't really contribute to that part of it, but maybe this will, help ease folks as well. Bruce mentioned you don't want to give 2 weeks notice. Here at Biogen, and I would think at most companies, we don't expect 2 weeks notice, especially out of a postdoc who's transitioning to industry. We are flexible and work with people. I'd say most folks, it's about a month before they join the company once they've accepted the offer. Sometimes that can be a little bit longer, and if they're ready to go sooner, that's fine too. But I don't want you guys going in thinking that every single job is going to be like, well, I accept this offer and I have to be there in 2 weeks. That might happen, but I don't think it's as common for these kinds of positions in industry.
All right. So the next question is that somebody says that they've contacted people through their alumni network in a company that they're interested in. So what is the right way to ask the person that they're in contact with for a recommendation for a position in that company?
I would say get to know them first. Adele mentioned people like to be flattered. They want to help and, give you their time, especially when you have that like alumni connection, right? It's always great if you're approaching someone and you've got something in common. I would spend some time to just say, hey, I'd like to learn more about what you do in your company. And in the course of that conversation, if you've identified roles or you can always ask about what's the best way to go about applying, or can you recommend a contact for me? But I would say, Adele, if you want to kind of follow up on this, or really anybody, like don't go in cold with, hey, can you give me a referral to a job?
No, absolutely. Agree with everything you say. It's about, I think if you come at it thinking I want to build relationships and getting to know somebody, find that, is there a connection? In the work I do, I sort of call it, a hook, where, and the beauty with, you've got groups that you can be in, alumni, you can find perhaps something that you can relate to the person on LinkedIn if they've got a LinkedIn profile up there, or, even if you're looking at a company website. So it's very much about, you're building relationships here. It's not just about getting a job, it's about building your network. And I think that sort of changes how we approach things when we can come at it with that sort of mindset.
Makes total sense. All right, so this next question is, when using LinkedIn for job searching, how do you make sure your application gets chosen, I guess, to look at from all the other applications for a follow-up, let's say?
Well, I guess this one's for me. So it is a balance of things. Make sure you are highlighting your key skills, like especially for scientific roles, have a skills section on your resume. And make sure that if you have skills that are required for the job, that they are definitely listed. If, I obviously look at tons and tons of resumes. We do get a lot of applications. I look at pretty much all of them. We have to be able to start to narrow down from some point, right? So if there are key skills required for the role that aren't listed on a resume, that's going to kind of be the first level. Outside of that, like, I don't know what you guys think, if any of you look at resumes or what, but for me, I like something creative or showy or colorful doesn't, like get me to go, oh, I like this person better, especially in a technical type of position. Don't worry about having to do something super creative on your resume. The skills section, and then really being able to, if I read through bullet points and I'm going, oh yes, I know this is in my job description, I can see this person has done it. It's a lot of work to search for a job. And I know that I've been in your shoes, but really tweaking your resume to fit specific job descriptions it's critical.
Susan, can I ask, for the skills section, do you like to see an independent section that just lists skills, or do you like to see skills as part of a bullet point that demonstrates some evidence of effectiveness using that skill?
Both. I like both. Yeah, I mean, just I think about, myself as not a scientist or a technical person. Like I said, I have to start somewhere in narrowing down, out of the resumes and applicants that we get. And I do read the full resume. So if I see the skills in the bullet points, great. But if I can quickly look at an independent skills section, that is a huge help and a great starter to at least make me continue to read the resume.
So Susan, I have heard that when you send a resume in, some companies use keyword searches that say match, or recruiters will use keyword searches that match the ad that you're responding to. Is that as common as what I hear that it is?
So It can be, yes, right? So every company these days, especially bigger companies, smaller companies, it could be a little bit different. But so like Biogen, globally, we're 8,000 employees. So we're not that small, but we're not like 50,000, 100,000 employees. We do have, a system where we receive applications, and it does pick keywords off of people's resumes. This is like super insider information, but our system, it actually will show a score, like a number score based on the match. And that really is like keyword related. So my role is kind of special in that I work on really specialized positions that are harder to fill. So I don't have like a volume of 30 positions. I'm just trying to kind of crank through people, which is a little bit different than, I would say, a traditional, in-house or corporate recruiter, and even the recruiters at Biogen. So I do take a little bit more time. I guess the short answer of what I'm trying to say is yes, it is common. So the keywords are important, but don't over keyword your resume either. I think just some of those tweaks that will be specific to a particular job description can really help boost.
If I can jump in, one of the sort of methods I use with people when we're actually looking at developing your resume or your LinkedIn profile is actually to get the job description and to literally go through it line by line and write out where you've done that, where you've done something similar, where you've used that skills, the results. So before you actually get down to a 1 or 2 page or 3-page resume, or before you get down to putting it on your LinkedIn profile, you really have a working document that's got a lot of this information in. And then it's maybe a case of really pulling out, what do you want to do more of, where are those skills, or if it's then sort of tailoring it more to that job, so then you cut down a lot of information into bullet points. And shorter paragraphs, and really using achievement-based language is what stands out than just kind of listing duties. So you've got this combination of skills and experience and results that you bring. Now I will share on the LinkedIn group. There's actually a free resume course that I have up that talks through some of these steps in more detail that I think will be helpful to people. And then really, before you're sending your resume to a job, kind of check the keywords that are in the job description and make sure that they're sprinkled plentifully across the resume you're sending. Should there be, an applicant tracking system, or just to make it easier that you're standing out.
Yeah. I don't want to go too far down the what your resume should look like road, but just guys, don't feel pressured to have a 1-page resume. It's, I think, kind of bad advice that's out there in the world. There's certainly a balance, right? I don't want to see 5 pages of a resume for someone who's fresh out of a PhD or 2 years of a postdoc, but 2 or 3 pages, you guys have a lot of accomplishments, you've done a lot of work, and it's more often than not, someone will be reading your resume who does not have a technical background like you do. So the more information you can give them without being, like super, super technical and scientific in your terminology will help them better understand what you do and what you've worked on and what your background is. So yeah, give me those 2 and 3 page resumes.
The only thing I was going to add too is that you can use word cloud software to compare job postings to your resume to see the similarity of what's pulling up in both of those. There's also a website called JobScan that does this, that will actually generate a score for you. It will compare the job posting language to your resume, and it generates exactly how good of a match is that. There's a certain number of times you can use that for free, and then it's a for-pay service. But simply using a word cloud is another good way just to check, are you hitting the right themes between these two?
Those are both really great suggestions. Thanks for clearing that up, Susan. I think we've all probably heard the 1-page resume line many, many times. Yeah, and it's just really not true for people who've been in academia for 10+ years. You just done a lot of stuff. So it's.
I got a 26-page academic CV the other day, so you know. and again, use your CVs, right? Like if you have a resume, more like industry style resume, great. Don't be afraid to submit, you know, a more academic type CV where people can see, you know, the depth of your accomplishments.
Awesome. So I think we have time for one last question. And for those of you who asked questions in the chat and then we didn't get around to, it's very likely because it seemed like a question that I thought tomorrow's panel would be better served to handle. And so I encourage you to come back tomorrow to hear those answers for some of those more industry perspective types of questions. So the last question is kind of open-ended. It's what if you know what you want to do, but that job doesn't exist?
That's a good one. I mean, also social media managers didn't exist 10 years ago, if not 5, right? Let's say 10. So yeah, I'm not really sure to answer that, but I find it funny to some extent.
I think this just kind of gets to a lot of what we've been talking about throughout is like, what is it about the job you want to do that's appealing to you? Like, what are the skills you're going to use? What's the impact you're going to have? You know, like, what is it about that job in your mind, you know, that is so appealing? And, you know, do the work to kind of put that stuff down on paper and then, you know, work to find roles that are going to fulfill those aspects of what you're looking for. Also, like Matteo said, certain jobs didn't even exist 2 years ago. You know, so go out there and find some innovative companies or places that are doing, you know, really interesting and different work. And, you know, maybe it's a place where, you know, you identify a company that is, you know, really pioneering and you think, oh, they're really close to what I want to do, but maybe if I get in there, I can create the job I want, right? Like, you know, find as close as you can and then, you know, I would say kind of move that direction, but I don't know what everyone else on the panel has to say about that.
So I would just echo that and say, be prepared to present that as the solution to somebody's problem and have conversations and be ready. This thing that you want to do, why do you want to do it? What is it making better? How is it helping somebody tap into an untapped market? What are the kinds of things that that's going to do? And be prepared to bring that up as you have conversations with people that are in those positions. The number of stories that I have from postdocs who have created positions at companies because they were interviewed for one thing and then they ended up talking about something else, and the people that are interviewing recognized, oh, but you have this skill set that we hadn't even thought about using before, right? So be prepared to talk about what you want to do and then network. I think that you know, that's when you do those things, you can make that job happen.
Awesome. You know, thanks to all the panelists. You guys have been really great. It's been awesome hearing your answers. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Callie. She's going to close us out for the day.
Yes, thank you again to all of our incredible panelists and to Adele for that very, very helpful talk, especially during, like, it's just very difficult to navigate this time right now. So I think it was a nice kind of a little jolt to the system. And thank you. Yeah, thank you again to everybody else on the panel. So also to everyone that joined us today, don't forget, so tomorrow we are going to be a bit more interactive. So today was awesome because we had these great panelists, and tomorrow we're shifting a little bit to an industry focus where we'll have, we'll start off with a panel of industry professionals, and then we're going to go right into our elevator pitches where, again, there's a $250 cash prize for 3 different awardees. So that is not some small chunk of change. So definitely get your pitches ready. And then we're going to transition from elevator pitches into networking. So this will be like our first go at virtual networking, and I'm really excited to see kind of how it goes. I think we have a really great plan set out for everybody. So please come tomorrow. And again, if you are interested in connecting with any of our panelists or with other fellow members that are here today or have participated in FRIPS in the past, please don't hesitate to join our LinkedIn group, because as Adele so eloquently put it, it is a very important area to be able to explore and to be well versed in. So again, thank you everybody so much, and please join us for round 2 tomorrow at 1 p.m. Have a great day.